Stop the presses because the Boston Bruins are a .500 team right now for the first time in weeks. With their first solid 60-minute effort on Saturday afternoon, Boston showed the league that they do have the ability to play against one of the toughest, albeit most white bread and boring, of teams out there this season. This team has effectively restarted their season. But with only 11 games to go until Thanksgiving, can they position themselves into a playoff spot this far out? This is a Bruins tape-to-tape snapshot. The Boston Bruins secured their third win in a row after defeating the Carolina Hurricanes on Saturday afternoon at the TD Garden by a score of 2-1. This was probably the Bruins' most complete and best game that they played of the season from start to finish. The Bruins were fast and physical for the most part, with the third period likely being their best period of hockey that I've seen them play since the season started. And for those of us who thought there might be a goalie controversy brewing, Marco Sturm put a stop to that by giving the net to Jeremy Swayman, and Swayman was excellent in this game against the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes are a legit, solid hockey team with a relentless forecheck. And while that forecheck gave the Bruins a lot of trouble for most of the second period, come the third period, the Bruins were able to get a couple of goals past Freddie Anderson, with the first one coming off the stick of Casey Mittelstadt after a great play with Charlie McAvoy coming in down low, who took a pass from Pavel Zacha, and Casey Mittelstadt was there to put the puck in and beat Freddie for a score of 1-0. And then the Bruins were able to shortly after that extend that lead on a killer shot by Viktor Arvidsson after an assist from Casey Mittelstadt that made it 2-0. Carolina tried to make the game interesting in the third period by pulling Freddie Anderson with about 3 minutes left in the period, and Nikishin just teed a shot up that blasted by Jeremy Swayman. But the Bruins stood tall and won a game against a very good team. And that was probably the first game where we finally saw the semblance of this defensive structure that the Bruins have been talking about and wanting to implement. The Bruins were without Elias Lindholm for this game, but Marco Sturm was able to make some lineup adjustments, and it saw Marat Khusnutdinov being elevated up to the first line, and Mark Kastelik was moved up to the third line. And credit to Mark Kastelik, he has been working hard. And that line of Kastelik, Jeannot, and Minton was very effective against the Carolina Hurricanes. And Charlie McAvoy and Nikita Zadorov are absolute wrecking balls playing together. They leveled so many hits against the Carolina Hurricanes. It was a thing of beauty to watch. And I'm begging you, Marco, please leave those two guys together. All in all, it was a solid team effort from top to bottom, which is all we have been wanting to see from the Boston Bruins. Boston gets a tiny rest this weekend after a series of wins at home before they go down to Long Island for the first of 3 games in 6, followed by a grueling stretch of games every other day from November 11th through November 29th. The Bruins also seem to be cursed with having the most games under their belts compared to all the other teams at any given point this year. Let's hope the coaching staff can manage the players well on and off the ice. The Islanders are pretty much in the same boat as Boston right now, but with 3 games in hand. Unlike Boston, however, the Isles are existing on the border of bad and fun, meaning it's the Wild West out there on the ice when they're playing. They've dipped in terms of their goal production, dropping to a -2 in that regard, but they do play the Blue Jackets at home before hosting Boston on Tuesday. They tend to also win and lose in spurts, and they just beat the Capitals 3-1 on Halloween in Washington. The Bruins will have to keep close tabs on Heineman and Horvat, two snipers who have pulled away from the rest of the skaters on the Islanders. Horvat, Heineman, and Palmieri lead the team in goals in all situations with 7, 5, and 4, respectively. Sorokin has played 8 games thus far and has had a less than stellar season as well. Like Swayman, his save percentage is below .900 at .877, and his goals against average is 3.4. Considering he was the goalie in net against Boston in Boston on October 28th, it is a possibility that we will see backup goalie David Rittich. He holds a .900 save percentage, but a similar 3.34 goals against average. The last matchup between these two teams also saw 8 penalties doled out, something that Boston needs to make sure doesn't happen again. Jeremy Swayman seems to have hit his stride, but then again, like the rest of this team, there have been good and bad days, so let's hope we see him standing on his head again out on the island. Make sure you rate and review the podcast to help us reach more listeners, and tune in weekly to our full podcast available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and all podcast platforms.